So, of course, the first semester we had here with the fellowship, as I know you've heard from everyone, was just a wonderful semester, learning all kinds of aspects. And towards the end of that first semester, we started interviewing for placements. And I was thrilled to have several opportunities. I interviewed with House Energy and Commerce. I interviewed with a couple of different individual senators, and I interviewed with the Senate Help Committee. All of those places offered me placements. I thought long and hard, and woman of faith, prayed about where I should go as well. And Senate Help just seemed to really reach out to me. Number one, I was very interested in being on the Senate side. Number two, Senate Help had not had an RWJF fellow in quite a long time, and they had been hesitant about having another fellow. So that's the reason I chose the Senate Help Committee. I wanted to work on a committee staff, I wanted to work in the Senate, and that's how that came together.
We do a lot of different interviews, and I'm from Washington State, so I really wanted to work with my Senator Patty Murray, and she wasn't taking fellows at the time, but she was on the Help Committee, Health, Education, Labor, and Pensions. So I wanted to find somebody who was on the Help Committee to have access to that. So I looked around at who was on. I had an interview with Senator Baldwin's team, and it was a good fit. And that's how I ended up there.
I interviewed at a number of offices, but when I got an offer to be in Nancy Pelosi's office with Wendell Primus, I said, that's what I'm going to go do. She was leader at the time. She was not speaker. But yes, I thought being in a leadership office would be a good experience. I was less interested in some of the committee opportunities. I'm a generalist, and I knew a personal office was going to be a more broad experience rather than a very focused one.
I had been a commissioned officer in the Public Health Service before, and therefore I had worked in the executive branch. So it made me pretty sure that for a different perspective and a unique experience that I did not have before, I knew I wanted to work on Capitol Hill. And as I looked at it and went around, a couple of things were really important to me. One of which was sort of the breadth of the so-called jurisdiction, and energy and commerce is just such a broad area. So for me, it was the excitement of a broad jurisdiction, and it certainly lived up to that experience.
In my placement, I chose the Senate Finance Committee because it was the most difficult thing I could possibly imagine doing.
I think in part because I already had a pretty broad background in a range of parts of healthcare, health policy, public health. I was really interested in working with a committee or leadership office where a lot of those pieces get knit together into some of the final bills that get voted on.
Word on the street was that the Affordable Care Act was going to pass, and that implementation would be done in Health and Human Services. The other sort of link for me was that Secretary Sebelius was from Cincinnati, Ohio, and I was very excited that she was the one in charge, and thought, what an opportunity. There hadn't been any RWJ fellows at HHS ever. So this was really new, and Marie Michnick and others made these interviews happen, and I was fortunate enough to be placed there with my colleague Gustavo Cruz. So we were the first two to be placed in the immediate office of the secretary.
I was blessed to end up in Bob Dole's office because I had done my homework, and I found out he was a master legislator. He was a leader, and since I was interested in process and broad process, I thought that would be a really good place to go. He was also had been on chairman of Finance Committee, so I knew he knew a lot about the funding of medicine. And I must tell you, as a little side benefit, I populated into my thinking that Elizabeth Dole, who was a very wonderful leader among women, that I might even have an opportunity to learn something from her. And sure enough, all that happened.
This was the first time in a long time that the Republicans controlled both houses of Congress. So for me, it was important to be where the power was. I looked at a couple of places, but I was particularly interested in Orrin Hatch because he had been the chair of the Senate Finance Committee and was going to be chair of the Senate Judiciary Committee. And he was also, I believe, chair of the Health and Human Services Committee. So he had sort of the full package, if you will, of healthcare policy. He was it. And so I felt, well, that's where I want to be.